I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy. Also, if you enjoy the videos, please do make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to the first 1,000, and every subscriber helps. Anyways, let's get moving on to this review, guys. What's going on, guys? Today we are going to do a Freddy Krueger Nightmare on Elm Street ranked best to worst in my opinion. First, before we begin, I just want to show off some pretty cool Freddy chopsticks that my buddy at work, Jason, got me. I really do appreciate it. These are going to be awesome to display with the rest of my horror gear. Anyways, this is what has inspired me to do this video today. So, enjoy. So if we're talking about the best to worst Freddy Kruegers, we have to start with the original, of course, the original Nightmare on Elm Street. This was by far the one that really started it. You know, Freddy was the most sinister in this one. I feel like the mystique of Freddy Krueger as well, because a lot of people didn't know what this child murderer brought to the table. You saw some intense kills. And what I liked about this is because sometimes less is more, you actually see a lot less of Freddy Krueger in the movie. I believe it was under 10 minutes, actually. So between all that, and it introduces an iconic villain that, you know, people grow to love throughout the years and throughout the decades. You think of horror, you think of Freddy Krueger. So you have to put this movie as the best one if you're looking at all the different variations that we've seen over the years. You know, we've seen him go from being extremely serious to we've seen him just be kind of a comedy act. And this one was really what I feel like Freddy Krueger is, in my opinion. And this is by far the best one of the franchise. So for number 2 on my best to worst, I actually got Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. What I really liked about this one is the kills were a lot more intensified from the other versions of the movies that we've seen so far. On top of that, I really did like the story because it brings you into a whole different setting with Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, it's got these kids that they can't really leave the setting because they're in a psych ward. And they're forced to take these pills, and they're forced to, you know, they have to go to sleep. So Freddy, one by one, tries to take them out as they go. I really did like the atmosphere of it. Also, what I liked about it was they were okay with pushing boundaries in the idea of killing off the final girl that everyone grew to love in the original one. You know, you got Nancy, who survived 1. She comes back in 3 as more of like a psychiatrist, and just to help these kids out with you know, defeating Freddy Krueger. So I really did like that. I think that it has some of the more interesting kill scenes as well. You know, welcome to prime time, bitch. You know, I really loved that part. You had the one where the person went off the building. The kill scenes in this one actually were really good. It felt like this is before they really stopped trying with Freddy and the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. So this was by far, I would put this as number 2 from best to worst. You definitely got to check this one out. It is so worth the watch. For number 3 on my list, I actually ended up going with Freddy vs. Jason. I thought this one was really good. A lot of people either love it or hate it. There's really no in-between with this movie. What I like about this movie is you get to see these 2 iconic characters that really do go after each other. You got Freddy kind of outsmarting Jason in the beginning, convincing him that he's his mom to go to Elm Street and start killing people off. So people will eventually think that it's Freddy Krueger, and that's how Freddy gets all of his power, by people remembering who he is. So on top of that, I really do like the kills in this movie. I thought that they were actually kind of original. One of my favorite ones is in the rave, where you have the fire setting, and then you also have a couple of the dream sequences that were pretty interesting. Freddy don't get as many kills in this one as Jason does, but ultimately it really don't matter because it's all about that showdown in the end. And they had a really good showdown from the dream sequence with Jason all the way to when they brought it back into reality. I thought that was a really good. So the fight scenes were really good, and also just the little one-liners that Freddy is known to give in the films. They just get better and better. And also with this one, I think that because if you look at all the different variations of Freddy, the glove kind of changes over time, little by little. I think that this was one of the cooler gloves. It was a lot more thinner but longer, and it looked sharper as well. So I would go with definitely this is be my favorite glove of Freddy Krueger's. So this is definitely one to check out if you haven't yet. Freddy vs. Jason is one of the all-time better Freddy movies out there. And you get to kind of see both the best of both worlds between him and Jason going at. So number 4 on my list is one that I did not like when I was a kid, but then when I was older and I gave it another chance, it actually became one of my favorites, and that is New Nightmare. That movie, in my opinion, it's very unique in its own way. You have this almost this meta aspect of it where they're acknowledging that Freddy Krueger was a movie. You're getting the real life characters. You're not getting Nancy. You're getting Heather. You're not getting Freddy in the beginning. You're getting Robert Englund. You're getting all these, like, what it would be like if Freddy wasn't real, but it was the movie and everyone's behind the scenes of it. I really did like that. I thought it was, like, very interesting. I liked the portrayal of the Freddy in this one, because by the end you realize that it's not really Freddy as much as an entity that has taken the form of Freddy, which is one of my I thought that was really cool, because during the whole movie they're almost recreating the original. There's a lot of the same scenes that you see from one carried over to this one. And I thought that was like a really cool aspect of it, that they kind of realized with 2, 3, all of them, that they kind of needed to go back to the original to kind of pick it back up where it was. Also, with this, I think that it brings a new look to the Freddy character. I really liked it. Freddy comes out with the trench coat, comes with some more intense kind of clothes. The clothes are just darker. It's not a fun Freddy that you're dealing with. His claws are in his actual hand this time. It is just one of those movies that you look at and it's different. It's not the same Freddy Krueger, because it's really not. It's more of like an entity that has taken the form of Freddy. Awesome movie. Hated it when I was a kid, but then I grew up, gave it another chance, and actually grew to love it. It's one of those movies that gets better with time. So if you haven't checked out New Nightmare yet, you really need to, because in my opinion, that was probably the last really good Soul Freddy movie. So number 5 on my list, I actually ended up going with Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Dream Master. Now, this is kind of where the franchise starts to take a turn for the worse. You can tell they don't really know what to do with the character of Freddy Krueger. They're kind of just cashing in on the name, trying to make as much money as they can in the box office. And it's just, you could see the downward slope as the movies start to progress. With that, there's not really much to brag about with Dream Master. They introduced some new characters. The kill scenes are okay, but I really don't have anything too positive to say about this movie. It's not bad, but it's just not good. Freddy starts to take more of a comedy route. You see a lot more things that you really wouldn't have seen within the first 3 films of how he acts in his dream sequences. They're a lot more comedy, and to me, that took away from the character that is Freddy Krueger, and it just didn't feel organic to me to watch it slowly go downhill. So for number 6, I actually ended up putting Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Dream Child. It's within the same realm as 4, Dream Master, whereas you're not really getting the feel of it being a Freddy movie as much. You get a lot more on this one than 4, in my opinion, because you get a little bit more of the backstory of Freddy Krueger by himself. You know, you learn more about his mom. You realize that how Freddy was birthed, how pretty much she was molested by multiple people from an insane asylum, and with that, Freddy Krueger ended up being born throughout all of that, which would form the, you know, evil mind that becomes Freddy Krueger in the future. That's really the thing that I liked about the movie. As far as like the final scenes, the kill scenes, they're nothing really to brag about. Again, this felt like a movie that lost its way, and they were just really trying to find new things to make the character work and try to get more people in theaters to watch it. It just felt more like a cash grab than anything. Really, 4, 5, and 6. All of those came off very, very off and not Freddy Krueger-like. Which brings me to number 7, Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's Dead. This one was really the final nail in the coffin for me with the franchise, because what you have is you have Freddy Krueger, who pretty much goes and all the kids in Elm Street are dead. He has accomplished his goal, and now the people left in Elm Street have kind of gone a little crazy, and they're not, you know, they believe in the aura that is Freddy Krueger now. And it's all adults, and it takes a very quirky turn. You see the daughter of Freddy Krueger in it. You get a little bit more backstory of Freddy before he died and how he became the immortal Freddy Krueger that you see in all these other movies. So that's kind of cool that you get a little bit of that backstory, but at the end of the day, like, it was just way too corny for me. This Freddy was not serious about anything. He wasn't the same sinister one from 4 or 5 movies back. This one was just, he was out there to just joke around and kill people if he wanted to. It wasn't something that I would brag about, which is funny because when I was younger, I actually did put this one as one of my favorites, but looking back, it just didn't age well. This one is one of those ones where you look at and say, what the hell were they thinking when they made this movie? You know, there are so many ways that you could go with Freddy Krueger, and some of these movies that they did really were questionable, and it's very disappointing for the franchise. Anyway, that was my number 7, Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's Dead. So for number 8, I ended up putting Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Now, the reason it's so low on my scale is because 1 was just it was just a banger. It was just a home run. It was one of those, like I said, it was an iconic movie that brought all these films moving forward. But when Freddy's Revenge came, it felt like they didn't know where to go with it because they were still learning about, the character of Freddy and what they can do with him and how they want to bring him back. And that's, the way they chose to do it was pretty much through possession. And I really didn't like that aspect of it. I didn't like how that's how they chose to go about it. There are some parts that are just weird. The final scenes with Freddy just don't make sense. You could definitely tell that this is just something that they were still learning the character. So although it's not the worst movie, to me, it didn't come off as genuine as I would have liked it to be. I think that if they went more the route of the original one and just pretty much how they did moving forward after 2, where he's going into dreams and killing people, I think that would have been way better, but not more of like the possession taking over somebody and then, using him to kill him or her. And That just didn't work out for me personally. I know some people really do like this movie, but it's just not one of my favorites, and I just have a hard time putting it on a higher rank because of that, because of it just don't feel like Freddy to me, especially after 2, when you start seeing how Freddy originally was. So that's why it is so low on mine. There is a cool pool party kill scene. I do think that was a fun little scene right there, but ultimately, other than that, it's nothing to go brag about. It was just a different direction that they chose to try to make Freddy moving forward, which just didn't work for me. And I'm assuming it didn't work for a lot of people, since they just rewound it and went back to the original pretty much when they made Nightmare on Elm Street 3. So we finally get to the last one in my review, and I gotta say, this movie was such a disappointment for me, because I was old enough to see it in theaters as a young adult, and that is the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. I thought that this was honestly one of the worst remakes I've seen in any franchise in general. You look at stuff like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they just completely killed it. Even the Jason movies, they did great. You look at Chucky, they did great. But then when you get into this Nightmare on Elm Street one, it just makes me want to rake my eyes out. The kills are okay. You get some little bit more intense. The version of Freddy is more intense. You could tell they were trying to get away from what they were doing in the previous movies before going into Freddy versus Jason. But without Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger, it was dead on arrival. Jackie Earle Haley, he did his best for the portrayal of what they wanted with Freddy Krueger, but it just didn't turn out the way that it should have. It just wasn't one of those movies that you look back at and you say, that's something I gotta see. I didn't like the way that they made Freddy. Up until this movie, Freddy was the neighborhood child murderer. And in this one, they take it and they flip it into a whole different thing. There's like pictures of incidents, and it's not what I pictured for Freddy Krueger, and it's not what a lot of people pictured for Freddy Krueger as well. It's one of those movies that you look at and you wish they didn't even touch the franchise in the first place, which is one of the reasons that I'm actually nervous about if they ever do touch the series again, because without Robert Englund and without really them knowing what Freddy is, you're not gonna have a good movie. And this was just that. This just wasn't a good movie, and that is just such a disappointment. Anyways, guys, this was my review on the Freddy Krueger movies ranked best to worst. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure to like it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Show all your friends. Until next time, this is the Horror Guru signing out. Peace.